All right, folks, let's switch gears now, do some more foreign policy, bring in my dear friend, former National Security Advisor, Mr. Robert O'Brien. Robert, maybe you know what the gifts are. You know, I don't know, beware of Iranians bearing gifts. Mr. Trump was very happy about it. He said it had something to do with oil and gas, and he boasted about it today. And he sees it as a good faith measure. Maybe he's absolutely right. What do you think the gifts are?
Well, I think that the Iranians are trying to stop the bombardment. They're getting just destroyed by the U.S. Air Force, by the IDF, and they want this to stop. And so I think they're promising to open the Strait of Hormuz. They're probably promising to stop their nuclear program. You can't believe a word they say, but President Trump has built up so much leverage for his negotiation. The upcoming talks with Kushner and Witkoff and whoever the Iranians send, whoever's still alive, that I think he's going to get a very good deal.
Well, I hope he does. You know, one of the things we haven't reported on much, what do the Iranians think they want? And, you know, I don't think they have any chance. I mean, they want, remuneration from the war. They want all American troops out of the Middle East, right? Out of the Middle East, not just completely out of the Middle East. They want that. So deportations. And Mr. Trump says that they will give up the uranium enrichment. You think they will? I mean, we're going to have to go and get it? It's very hard to figure. So reparations, withdrawal of American troops. Oh, I know. I forgot the Tehran toll booth, the oil toll for the Middle East. So that's what they want. I know what President Trump is talking about, what he wants. That's what they want. It's hard to believe we would agree to what they want.
Larry, we're not going to agree to anything that they ask for. The great hope of the Iranians is for the regime to survive. So if the regime survives and the Ayatollahs are still in power in 6 months and they've got their Baji militia running around shooting Iranian citizens and hanging people from cranes, that's what they want. That's the kind of government they want. That's the kind of life they want. And then they want to be able to shoot off missiles and ballistic missiles and drones at their neighbors. That's what they're hoping to survive. I don't think they're going to survive. I think if they come to this negotiation and think they're going to get something from President Trump, they're sort of mistaken. They ought to come to the negotiations bearing all the enriched uranium and in a box and hand it to us and say, this is everything we've got. Leave us alone. But going back to what Coach Tuberville said, it's tough to do it when you're stupid. And I think these guys are going to be pretty stupid in the negotiations and not cave in. These guys ought to show up to the negotiating table and just cave into Witkoff and Kushner, take whatever's on offer and try and survive.
Interesting story in the New York Times. I don't know how credible any of the New York Times stuff is, but it's suggesting that the Saudis, MBS, the Crown Prince is urging President Trump not to stop fighting, that he wants, even more damage, and he wants the radical regime out altogether. So he's saying, don't stop fighting now. You have a thought on that?
Yeah, that does not surprise me, Larry, because, look, the Crown Prince is, MBS is the key, the keeper of the two holy places, Mecca and Medina. The Iranians have sought to undermine his role as a custodian of the mosques. And they've attacked his oil industry, his export depots. The Houthis are trying to close down the Red Sea where he exports his oil. So he's got no interest in the Iranians surviving and rebuilding their military, rebuilding this drone program and the missile program. He wants them done. He wants them out, and he wants them gone. And in that sense, he's very much aligned with Bibi Netanyahu and the Israelis. No one in the neighborhood wants these bullies to survive.
Yes, I think that's right. Is there, President Trump yesterday, when he announced the deal discussion with Iran, he mentioned running the Strait of Hormuz, running the oil and running the money, and running the disbursement of the money. It's, in many ways, we have to have a chokehold on the money and the oil. and Hormuz itself. And it'd be nice, you know, we can't put Iran in a position where they're selling oil again and making money not only to rebuild Iran, but to rebuild their terrorist networks, right? Elsewhere in the Middle East and who knows where. I mean, who controls the money and the disbursement here is going to be a big winner.
Yeah, the United States and its allies are going to have to control the money, because otherwise, Larry, the Iranians are going to build tunnels in Iran, just like they've got now, and use those tunnels to store their drones and their missiles. And they're going to go back to places like Gaza and southern Lebanon and build tunnels for Hamas and Hezbollah to attack Israel. We're done with tunnels in the Middle East. We spent too much money destroying all these tunnels in Iran and in Gaza and in Lebanon. Let's start using the money that's derived from these oil sales for the good of the people in Iran and the good of the people in the Middle East. Give them food, give them education, give them jobs, and let's stop building tunnels and weapons of war.
Is it possible? I mean, you know, Mr. Trump said it, and, you know, I believe what he says. Some of it's psychological warfare, but sometimes he's deadly, deadly serious. Any kind of deal has got to put the United States in the driver's seat for all of the Strait of Hormuz, the passage of the ships, the actual destination, the money, where the money. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like Venezuela. I mean, in that sense, it's what we've done in Venezuela. And by the way, it's working. And cutting off the oil to Cuba seems to be working too. Perhaps a regime change is imminent there. The Iranian story, I mean, I just think that has to be central. I'm sure this is not an original thought, but you've been in this position before. Can this be achieved?
No, it can be achieved, because if this regime wants to survive and wants to stop the bombing and stop the naval bombardment of their country by us and the Israelis, and pretty soon by the Saudis and the Emiratis, they've got to turn over the oil. It's like oil for food, which Saddam did after the first Gulf War. We have to make sure that the oil goes to the people of Iran, and that the oppression and the tyranny ends, and that these poor people get a chance, and that also keeps some money out of the hands of the terrorists, and it keeps some money from building nuclear bombs and missiles.
Yeah.
So we've got to control the money. You're right about Venezuela; it's the same thing, and we also need to make sure the Chinese pay full price for their barrels of oil, and don't get it at a big discount.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The China card. Anyway, Robert O'Brien, former National Security Advisor. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate it very, very much.